The battlefield was silent after the war. The sounds of laser fire and explosions were replaced by the hum of engines and the soft footsteps of soldiers. Earth had just won another battle in the long war against the alien forces. The soldiers gathered in a massive hall, their faces tired but proud. They had fought hard, and now it was time for their reward. Humanity had earned the respect of the galaxy, and the alien empire had promised to reward the brave warriors. Each soldier had been told to choose one of the alien princesses. The princesses were beautiful, their faces glowing with elegance, and their bodies perfect by the standards of their kind. Every soldier knew that choosing a princess was not just an honor, but also a way to ensure respect and glory. James Turner, a seasoned soldier, stood among them. He was tall, his face sharp from years of training, and his uniform spotless. He had seen battles across countless planets, and he had never hesitated in the face of danger. But today was different. Today, he would choose a princess, just like everyone else. The other soldiers chatted excitedly, pointing out their choices. Some went for the most beautiful princesses, the ones with flawless skin and perfect features. Others laughed and joked, as they made their picks as if it were all just a game. But James didn't feel the same excitement. To him, it felt strange to choose a prize based on looks alone. He wasn't interested in fame or glory. He had enough of that from the war. What mattered to him was something deeper. As the line moved forward, soldiers stepped up one by one, claiming their reward. James waited his turn, observing each princess carefully. They were all stunning, but something about their beauty seemed hollow. It was as if their looks were meant to hide something more important, something that only a few people could see. Finally, it was James's turn. The other soldiers were watching, eager to see who he would choose. He scanned the line of princesses. Some had sparkling eyes and radiant smiles, while others had soft, graceful postures. They all seemed to have everything anyone could want, but then his eyes landed on her. Zara, the princess who stood apart from the others. She wasn't as beautiful as the others. In fact, she was considered by many to be the ugliest of them all. Her skin was a dull shade of gray, and her features were sharp in a way that made her seem out of place. Her hair a dull brown hung loosely around her face, and her eyes, though kind, seemed to carry the weight of sadness. Most soldiers avoided her, turning their backs as if she were invisible. But James didn't look away. He saw something in her eyes, something that made him step forward without hesitation. "I choose her," James said calmly, pointing to Zara. A wave of shock passed through the crowd. The other soldiers whispered among themselves, some laughing, others confused. Zara herself was stunned, her mouth opening in surprise. She had expected to be ignored, just like always. But James, the soldier who had fought so fiercely and bravely, had chosen her. Why? Zara's heart raced, and she tried to hide the small smile that formed on her lips. No one had ever chosen her before. They always picked the others. But here, now, a human soldier had chosen her. She didn't understand it, but she was grateful. I am honored, soldier," Zara said, her voice soft and uncertain. James nodded. "You're not what others expect, are you?" he asked, his voice low. Zara looked down, embarrassed. "I'm not like the others," she replied softly. "But I've always been ... different. Most people don't see me. They only see what they want to see." James stood there, his expression unreadable. He had always been a man of few words. But something about Zara drew him in. He could tell she was hiding something. He wasn't sure what it was, but he knew there was more to her than just the surface. "You have more to offer than anyone realizes," he said quietly. The words seemed to surprise Zara. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. "You think so?" she asked, almost as if she didn't believe him. James smiled faintly. "I know so." The other soldiers continued to whisper, some snickering, others staring in disbelief. But James didn't care about their opinions. He had made his choice, and he was certain it was the right one. As they walked off the stage together, Zara felt a strange warmth in her chest. For the first time in her life, someone had seen her not for her looks, not for her status, but for who she truly was. Thank you, Zara said quietly, looking up at James. No need to thank me, he replied. It's just a choice, and I believe it's the right one. They walked through the hall, Zara's thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and hope. She had no idea what this man saw in her. But she was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, there was more to her than she had ever believed. And as the crowd of soldiers continued to stare and gossip, Zara realized that this was the first step in a journey she had never expected to take. And perhaps, just perhaps, it would be a journey where she would finally be seen for who she truly was. James and Zara boarded the shuttle that would take them to her home planet. The other soldiers had chosen their princesses and were already on their way. But James and Zara were left behind, walking together toward the ship that would take them. Across the stars, Zara felt nervous, unsure of what to expect. She had never left her homeworld before, and she had never been in the company of someone like James. He was so different from the people she had known, so calm and collected, while she often felt out of place. As they entered the shuttle, the doors closed behind them and the engines began to hum. Lifting them into the sky, James sat across from Zara, watching her carefully. She was silent, her eyes staring out the window at the stars. He had noticed how much she had kept to herself, even after he had chosen her. She had thanked him, of course, but it was clear that she was still unsure of his intentions. "You don't have to thank me," James said after a moment of silence. "I made my choice because I wanted to." Zara turned to look at him, surprised by his words. "Why?" she asked. "Why me? I'm not like the others. I don't look like the princesses you've probably dreamed of." James smiled softly. "I'm not interested in looks. I wanted to choose someone who was different, someone who wasn't just going to be a pretty face. You seemed ... real." Zara's heart skipped a beat. She had spent her entire life feeling like an outsider, someone who was judged by her appearance. Instead of her character, she had always been told she wasn't good enough, that she wasn't beautiful enough, that she didn't fit in. But here was this soldier, someone from a completely different world, telling her that it didn't matter to him. She didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. No one had ever seen beyond her appearance. As the shuttle passed through space, heading toward Zara's planet, James and Zara fell into a comfortable silence. The stars outside shimmered, their light reflecting in the dark, endless void. Hours passed. The shuttle finally reached Zara's homeworld. The planet was beautiful, with vast oceans and towering mountains. It was a place of great beauty, but Zara had never truly felt at home there. As they descended toward the surface, she found herself feeling a mix of excitement and fear. James noticed her unease. "You okay?" he asked softly. Zara nodded, though her hands clenched nervously. "I've never brought anyone here before. It's a strange feeling." James could see how much it meant to her. He could sense the pressure she felt, the weight of the expectations that her people placed on her. "You don't have to worry about me," he said. "I'm just here to learn about you, nothing more." She gave him a small, uncertain smile, and the shuttle landed gently on the ground. The moment they stepped off the shuttle, Zara's people greeted her with a mixture of curiosity and surprise. They had never expected Zara to bring a human soldier with her, especially one who had chosen her.
"Oh."
Many of them whispered to one another, their eyes shifting between James and Zara. It was clear they didn't know what to make of the situation. Zara led James through the streets of her city, which was surrounded by tall buildings made of smooth stone and intricate carvings. The architecture was unlike anything James had ever seen. The buildings seemed to rise up from the ground like the towering trees of a forest, reaching for the sky. "This is where I grew up," Zara said, her voice soft. "It's home, I guess." James nodded, taking in the beauty of the city. "It's amazing here." They walked in silence for a while, with Zara occasionally pointing out places of importance. She showed him the ancient gardens where the royal family had once held ceremonies, the palace where her ancestors had ruled for centuries, and the high cliffs that overlooked the ocean. Each place held meaning for her, but to James it was all new and strange. As they continued walking, Zara's unease grew. She had always felt like she didn't belong here, that she was different from the others. She'd never fit the image of a perfect princess, always overshadowed by the beauty and grace of her sisters. And now, with James by her side, she was more aware of her differences than ever before. James, she began, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Do you think I'm, well, not like the others. James stopped walking and turned to face her. He could see the vulnerability in her eyes, the doubt that she had carried with her for so long. He stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Zara, he said softly, you're not like the others. And that's what makes you special. Zara looked up at him, her heart swelling with emotion. But I'm not beautiful. Like them, she whispered. James smiled, a warmth in his eyes. Beauty is more than skin deep, Zara. I don't care about what others see. I see you for who you are. For the first time, Zara felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She had always struggled with the expectations placed on her, the constant comparisons to others. But here, with James, she realized that she didn't need to be perfect. She didn't need to be what others wanted her to be. She just needed to be herself. They continued their walk through the city. And though Zara still felt a little nervous, she couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. For the first time in her life, someone had truly seen her, not for her appearance, but for who she really was. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the city, Zara realized that this was only the beginning of a new chapter. And perhaps, with James by her side, she would finally find her place in the world. The night had fallen over Zara's home planet, and the city lights flickered like stars on the ground. James and Zara walked through the quiet streets, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. The day had been long, filled with tours of the city and conversations that only scratched the surface of what Zara wanted to share. There was something she was holding back, something she had yet to reveal. And James could sense it, as they neared a secluded area on the outskirts of the city. Zara slowed her pace. Her face, normally soft and uncertain, was now set in a serious expression. James noticed the change immediately. Is something wrong? He asked, his voice gentle. Zara hesitated, her eyes flickering with indecision. There's something I need to show you, she said quietly, but you might not understand. James followed her, intrigued but trusting her completely. He didn't care what it was. He had already decided he would stand by her no matter what. They arrived at a large, ancient stone structure hidden beneath thick vines and moss. It was tucked away in a forgotten part of the city, a place untouched by time. Zara placed her hand on the surface of the stone wall, and a low hum vibrated through the air. Slowly, a hidden door slid open, revealing a dimly lit hallway. Zara glanced back at James. Follow me, she said softly. They walked down the hallway. The walls adorned with strange symbols and carvings. James could feel the weight of the place, the sense that it was more than just a building. It was a part of Zara's history, a secret she had been carrying for far too long. At the end of the hallway, they entered a large chamber. The room was circular, its walls lined with ancient artifacts and crystal-like structures that seemed to pulse with energy. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it was a small orb. Glowing with a soft blue light, Zara walked toward it, her movements slow and deliberate. She placed her hand on the orb, and the room filled with a soft, melodic hum. James watched, captivated by the beauty of the moment. But then Zara turned to him, her face serious. This is the heart of my people, Zara said, her voice barely above a whisper. It's the source of our power, the reason why my family has ruled for centuries. James took a step closer, his curiosity piqued. But how does this relate to you? Zara took a deep breath. I wasn't always like this, she said. The way you see me, the way everyone else sees me, it's not real. I've been hiding my true self for years. James frowned. Why? Zara looked down at the glowing orb in her hand. My people have always been afraid of the power that runs through our bloodline. They think it's too dangerous, too uncontrollable. So I've been kept hidden. They made me wear a disguise, a form that was less powerful, less noticeable. But that's not who I am. She took a step back, and the orb began to glow brighter. The energy in the room shifted, and suddenly Zara's form began to change. Her body shimmered with light, and for a brief moment, James saw the true Zara. She was tall, graceful, her features sharp yet beautiful in a way that made her appear otherworldly. Her skin, once dull, now glowed with a faint golden hue. Her eyes, once sad and uncertain, now shone with confidence and strength. James stood frozen, his mouth slightly open in awe. You're incredible. Zara smiled faintly, but there, with sadness in her eyes. This is the real me, but I've kept this hidden from everyone, even from myself. I've been told for so long that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't beautiful enough, that I had to hide who I truly was. James stepped forward, his voice filled with wonder. Zara, you're more than enough. You're powerful, beautiful, and strong. I can't believe anyone would want you to hide this. Zara looked away, her eyes filled with uncertainty. But you don't understand, my people. They see this power as a threat. They think it's too much for one person to carry. They made me believe that my true form would make me a target, that it would destroy everything I love. James shook his head. Zara, no one should ever make you feel small or less than you are. Your power is a gift, not something to be afraid of. For a long moment, Zara remained silent, her gaze fixed on the glowing orb. The chamber was still, as if holding its breath, waiting for her to make a decision. Finally, she spoke, her voice trembling. I've spent so long hiding from my own truth, she said softly. But maybe it's time to stop running. Maybe it's time to show the world who I really am. James stepped closer to her, his hand reaching out gently. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here, Zara. I'll help you. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Zara looked into his eyes, and for the first time, she felt a sense of peace. She wasn't alone anymore. With James by her side, she could face whatever came next. And perhaps for the first time, she could finally be herself without fear. Without hiding, the orb in her hand began to glow even brighter, its energy filling the room with a warm, comforting light. It was as if the universe itself was welcoming her back, embracing her for who she truly was. Zara smiled, a sense of calm washing over her. Thank you, James, for seeing me, for helping me see myself. James returned her smile, his heart full. You don't have to thank me. I've always seen you. As the light from the orb bathed them both in its glow, Zara knew that this was just the beginning. She was no longer the hidden princess, the one who had been cast aside and made to feel small. She was Zara, the true heir to her people's power. And with James by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The morning after Zara revealed her true self, the atmosphere on her home planet was charged with tension. Zara's decision to show her power had stirred more than just curiosity, had ignited fear. The elders, the leaders of her people, had always kept her hidden for a reason. They feared what might happen if the true heir to the throne embraced her power. And now, with the whole city buzzing about her transformation, they knew they had a problem. Zara stood on the balcony of the palace, staring out at the horizon. The sky was a deep shade of purple, with streaks of orange from the rising sun. Her heart was still racing from the night before, when she had let go of the years of hiding, but now a new sense of unease was growing within her. She had revealed her true form to the world, and while part of her felt free, another part feared. What might come next? James stood beside her, his eyes scanning the horizon as well. He could sense the shift in Zara's energy. The way she was no longer just the princess, she was someone far greater than that now. But he also knew that this newfound strength would come with its own set of challenges. You're not alone, Zara, he said, his voice steady and reassuring. We'll face this together. Whatever happens, I'm with you. Zara turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face. She could see the sincerity in his gaze, and it comforted her more than she had expected. Thank you, James, she replied softly. I'm just not sure what's going to happen next. I've never been in control of this much before. James smiled gently. We'll figure it out, one step at a time. But as they stood there, the sound of hurried footsteps broke the calm. Zara turned to see one of her closest advisors, an older man named Varese, rushing toward them. His expression was grim, his face lined with worry. "Your Highness," Varese said, bowing his head slightly in respect. "There's been a message from the council. They request your presence immediately. THEY. They're not pleased with your actions." Zara's heart sank. She had known the council wouldn't be happy about her revealing her true form. But she hadn't expected them to react so quickly. The weight of their judgment loomed over her now, and she felt the familiar anxiety rise within her. "I'll be there shortly," Zara said, her voice calm but with a hint of unease. Varese nodded and left as quickly as he had arrived, leaving James and Zara alone once more. Zara took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. "I always knew the council would react like this," she said quietly. "They've been controlling me for so long. But now I feel like I'm finally taking control of my own destiny. I just hope they don't try to stop me." James stepped closer to her, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They won't stop you. You're stronger than they realize. But whatever happens, we'll face it together. Don't let their fear change who you are." Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. She knew he was right. The council's fear was not her burden to carry. She had already carried too much for too long. It was time to stand up for herself. The council hall was grand, with high marble columns that reached up to the sky. The walls were adorned with tapestries of the planet's history, its rulers, its battles, and its triumphs. But today the hall felt cold, its grandeur overshadowed by the tension that hung in the air. Zara entered the room with James by her side. The council members were already gathered, their faces stern, their eyes filled with judgment. As soon as Zara walked in, the room fell silent. She could feel their gazes on her, their disapproval radiating like a heavy cloud. The head of the council, Councillor Malik, stood up from his seat. His voice was sharp and cold as he addressed her. "Princess Zara, we are deeply concerned about your actions. Revealing your true form is a dangerous move. You have disrupted the balance of our society, and we fear the consequences of this decision." Zara stood tall, her head held high. She knew what she had to do. "I did what I believed was right," she said, her voice steady. "I have spent my whole life hiding, living in the shadow of an image that was not mine. I am not afraid of who I am anymore. I will not be controlled by fear." Malek's eyes narrowed. "You do not understand the dangers of your power, Zara. If you continue down this path, you will tear apart the very foundation of our people. You must return to your previous form and step down from the throne." Zara's heart clenched at his words. He was trying to take everything from Hertha. One thing that had been hers, the one thing she'd been working toward her whole life. But she refused to back down. "I will not be a puppet anymore," she said, her voice strong. "I will not hide who I truly am. If you cannot accept that, then I will find another way to lead my people." James stepped forward, his presence a quiet support behind her. "Zara's decision is hers to make. If you fear her power, then that is your weakness, not hers. She is stronger than any of you realize." The council was silent for a moment, the weight of James's words hanging in the air. Malek's gaze flicked between Zara and James, his lips pressed into a tight line. Finally, he spoke again, his tone more measured but still filled with authority. "We will not accept this rebellion, Princess," Malik said coldly. "But you are the heir to the throne. The people may follow you, but you must prove that you are worthy of their loyalty." Zara met his gaze with unwavering confidence. "I will prove it," she said. "I will show you that my power is not a curse, but a blessing. And I will lead my people whether you accept me or not." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. They were not used to defiance, especially from someone as important as Zara, but Zara's resolve was clear. She was no longer the princess they had known. She was something new, something stronger. As Zara and James left the council hall, she felt the weight of the challenge ahead. The council would not make things easy, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. She had found her voice, and she was ready to fight for what was hers. James turned to her, offering a smile. "You did well," he said. Zara looked at him, her heart full. "We did well. Together." Zara's declaration had stirred more than just the council. Word of her power spread quickly, reaching not only the ears of her people, but also the enemies who had long sought to overthrow her family. They had been waiting for the right moment to strike, and now they saw their opportunity. Zara's rise was seen as a threat that needed to be eliminated before it could grow any further. The day after the council meeting, a fleet of ships arrived in the skies above Zara's planet. The ships were dark and menacing, their sleek designs casting shadows over the land. The enemy had come. Zara stood on the balcony of the palace once again, looking out at the fleet that had gathered in the sky. The sight of them sent a wave of fear through her, but she refused to show it. She had faced her own fears for so long. Now, she would face this one as well. James stood beside her, his eyes scanning the ships. He had been through many battles in his life, but this felt different. There was more at stake this time, this future of her people. He could see the determination in her eyes, but he also saw the weight of the responsibility she carried. He knew she was scared, but he believed in her strength. "You're not alone in this," James said, his voice firm. "I'm with you." Zara turned to him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "I've never felt more uncertain in my life, but you make me believe I can do this." James smiled. "We'll face this together, just like we've always done." The two of them walked toward the war room, where Zara's commanders had gathered to strategize. The room was filled with tension as they discussed their options. The enemy fleet was large and powerful, but Zara had one thing they didn't: her true power. "We need to act fast," one of Zara's generals said. "If we wait too long, they'll be able to land and overwhelm us." Zara nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. She couldn't afford to wait. She couldn't afford to be weak. "Prepare the fleet. We will not retreat. We will face them head-on." The generals exchanged wary glances, but did not argue. They had seen Zara's strength firsthand, and they knew that she was not a princess to be underestimated. Her transformation had made her a force to be reckoned with, and they would follow her into battle as the fleet prepared for battle. Zara stood at the center of the command room, her hand on the orb that held the power of her people. "Ouch!" Her eyes, feeling the energy surge through her. It was as if the very earth beneath her feet was alive with potential. She could feel the strength of her ancestors coursing through her. And for the first time, she truly understood the power she held. She had spent so long hiding from it, but now she was ready to embrace it. She was ready to lead her people into battle. The sky above Zara's planet was filled with the sound of warships as they took off, heading toward the enemy fleet. Zara's own fleet was smaller, but it was well-trained and ready to fight. They had the advantage of their leader's power, but Zara knew that this battle would test everything they had. As they approached the enemy fleet, Zara's heart raced, as the battle ahead would be fierce, and she couldn't afford to make any mistakes. She could feel the weight of her responsibility pressing down on her. But she also felt a sense of clarity that had been missing for so long. James was by her side, as always, his presence a steady support. He had trained her in combat, teaching her how to use her strength effectively. He had been with her every step of the way, and now, in this moment, she was ready to show the galaxy what she was truly capable of. The enemy fleet opened fire as soon as they came within range. Zara's fleet responded, their ships weaving in and out of the fire as they returned fire with precision. The battle was chaotic, with explosions lighting up the sky and laser blasts cutting through the air. Zara's ship led the charge, her commands coming through the comm system with sharp precision. She had never felt more in control. She wasn't just commanding her fleet, she was commanding herself. She had shed the doubts and fears that had once held her back, and now she was the leader her people needed. James's voice came through her earpiece. "You're doing great, Zara. Keep pushing." Zara's eyes narrowed as she focused on the enemy's flagship. It was heavily armored, but she could feel its weakness. She could sense the vulnerability in the ship's design, the one flaw that she could exploit. "Target the flagship," she ordered. "All fire on my mark." Her fleet responded instantly, their weapons locking on to the enemy ship. Zara took a deep breath, her hand hovering over the control panel. The energy in the room seemed to intensify as she prepared to unleash everything she had. "Now," she shouted. A barrage of laser fire shot out from her fleet, slamming into the flagship's hull. The enemy ship groaned under the pressure, its shields failing under the relentless assault. Zara's heart raced as the flagship began to crack and split apart, its massive form tumbling through space. The enemy fleet faltered, their ships hesitating as they watched their leader's flagship fall. Zara knew that this was their chance. She wasn't going to stop until they had secured victory. As the battle raged on, Zara's fleet pushed forward, their confidence renewed. The enemy fleet began to retreat, their morale shattered by the destruction of their flagship. But Zara didn't let up. She wasn't finished yet. This battle wasn't just about defeating her enemies. It was about proving to herself and to her people that she was more than just the princess who had been hidden away. She was their leader, and she would do whatever it took to protect them. The battle ended hours later. With Zara's fleet victorious, the enemy had been driven off, their ships fleeing into the depths of space. Zara stood at the command center, her chest rising and falling with the effort of the battle. Her fleet was battered, but they had held strong. James stood beside her, his eyes filled with pride. "You did it," he said quietly. Zara looked at him, her heart swelling. "We did it," she corrected him. "Together." As the dust settled, Zara realized that this battle had changed everything. She wasn't the same person she had been before. She had fought for her people, for her future, and she had come out victorious. The galaxy had seen her power, and now they knew who she truly was. The battle was over. Zara's fleet had driven the enemy back, securing the safety of her people and proving to herself that she was more than just the princess everyone had tried to hide. As the last of the enemy ships retreated into the stars, Zara stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out at the peaceful sky. The tension in her chest had eased, but the weight of everything she had done, and everything she still had to do, was still with her. James stood beside her, his expression calm but filled with pride. He had fought by her side, helped her prepare for this moment, and now he was there to witness the aftermath of her triumph. "You did it," James said, his voice full of admiration. Zara turned to him, her eyes filled with both gratitude and uncertainty. "We did it," she corrected him. "I couldn't have done it without you. You stood by me when everyone else doubted me. You showed me that I wasn't weak." James smiled and placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've always been strong, Zara. I just helped you see it." Zara took a deep breath, her gaze drifting back to the sky. The stars above had always seemed distant to her, like something she could never reach. But now, after everything she had been through, she felt a deep connection to them. She felt like she had finally found her place in the universe. "I used to think I wasn't meant for this," Zara said softly. "I thought I was just a failure, someone who couldn't live up to the expectations placed on me. But now, I see that I've been hiding from my own power. I've been running from it for so long, afraid that it would hurt people. But it's not something to be afraid of. It's part of who I am." James nodded, understanding. "You've embraced who you truly are, and that makes you stronger than anyone who's ever tried to keep you down." Zara smiled, her heart lighter than it had ever been. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't the princess who had been kept hidden away. She was Zara, the leader of her people, the one who would guide them into a new future. The next few days were filled with celebrations. The people of Zara's planet rejoiced in their victory, and many looked at her with newfound respect. They had seen her power, her strength, and they no longer saw her as the ugly princess who had been hidden away. They saw her for who she truly was, a ruler, a protector, and a leader. Zara stood at the center of the palace, surrounded by her people. She felt their eyes on her, but this time she wasn't afraid. This time, she could face them all with her. Head held high, James stood beside her, watching as the crowd cheered. He had seen her grow from someone who had doubted herself to someone who had embraced her true power. It had been an incredible journey, and he was proud to have been part of it. Zara raised her hand, signaling for the crowd to quiet down. The cheering died down, and everyone turned their attention to her. "I want to thank all of you," Zara began, her voice strong and clear, "for believing in me, for standing by me. I know I've made mistakes, but I've learned from them. I've learned that being a leader isn't about being perfect. It's about being true to yourself and the people you serve." The crowd listened in silence, their eyes fixed on her as she continued. "I've spent so long hiding who I am, thinking that I had to be someone else. But I realize now that I don't have to be anyone but myself. I promise you I will lead you with all my heart. I will fight for you, protect you, and guide us into a future where we are strong and free." The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the palace. Zara felt a wave of emotion wash over her. This was what she had fought for. This was the future she had always dreamed of, and now it was within her grasp. Later that night, as the celebrations continued, Zara found herself alone in the garden outside the palace. The cool night air brushed against her skin, and she looked up at the stars once more. This time, she didn't see them as distant points of light. She saw them as part of her future, part of the journey she was about to embark on. James joined her, his footsteps quiet as he approached. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, gazing up at the sky. They didn't need words in that moment. They both understood what had changed. "You know," Zara said after a long pause, "I used to think that I wasn't meant to be a leader. I thought I was supposed to fit into a mold, to be what others expected of me. But now I see that I don't need to be anyone else. I just need to be myself." James smiled, his eyes reflecting the stars above. "And that's more than enough." He said, "You've always been enough." Zara turned to him, her heart full. "Thank you, James, for everything. You believed in me when no one else did. You showed me that I could be strong, that I could be more than I ever imagined." James placed a hand on her shoulder, a silent promise of support. "I'll always be here for you, Zara, no matter what." The two of them stood there in silence, watching the stars above, knowing that this was just the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, battles to fight, and struggles to face. But Zara was no longer afraid. She had found her strength, her purpose, and her place in the galaxy. And with James by her side, she knew she could face anything.